Episode 57 CL January 28, 2025 13 questions Kennedy Jr. must answer, according to experts. In Episode 57 CL 1 World 2A United States 13 questions Kennedy Jr. must answer, according to experts 2C United States a dangerous virus bird flu enters a new phase 2E United States heat pump rebates 3A California Los Angeles wildfires are revealing the limits of our hydrant systems 3B California San Francisco winter brings renewed health concerns for residential wood burning in Bay Area 4 Kansas 5 Massachusetts 6 New Jersey Hewitt RAWSEP view this Hewitt New Jersey resident is uneducated about the air pollution caused by wood burning, or this Hewitt New Jersey resident is uncaring abou the health effects on his near neighbors of wood burning 7 Ohio 8 Oregon 9 Pennsylvania 10 Washington 11 Canada Q&A heat pumps and how they work explained by a sustainability expert 12A United Kingdom Drax Burning wood for power not necessary for UK energy goals analysis finds the Guardian 13. Sweden suspects gross sabotage after damage to cable under Baltic Sea 14A Germany heat pump sales halved in Germany in 2024 but industry confident of better times ahead 14B Germany Firewall around the far-right Wobbles in Germany responding to the killing of a child the poll-leading Christian Democrats are pushing to overhaul migration laws possibly with votes from the alternative for Germany the neo-Nazi party 15A Africa Tanzania Matipwiki example inside a new plan to bring electricity to 300 million in Africa 16A India improved daily PM 2.5 estimates in India reveal inequalities in recent enhancement of air quality 16B India wood burning stove serious problem for your health environment 17 Laos air quality in Laos reaches unhealthy levels 18 Thailand PM 2.5 dust may return after January 29th due to low ventilation rates 19 PM 2.5 and human health main content 1A world wood burning stoves are a serious problem for your health and the environment the conversation exposure to outdoor air pollution caused by wood burning is an obvious health risk but the pollution also finds its way into homes worsening indoor 1B World ET HealthWorld However burning wood is not necessarily a healthier or greener alternative to coal or gas for home heating wood burning produces a complex chemical wood burning stove serious problem for your health environment ET HealthWorld However burning wood is not necessarily a healthier or greener alternative to coal or gas for home heating wood burning produces a complex chemical 2A United States 13 questions Kennedy Jr. must answer according to Experts Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates a 501c3 nonprofit organization January 28, 2025 by New York Times opinion questions experts believe Kennedy must answer before serving in a role that oversees a $17 trillion budget and wields enormous influence over drug approvals public health and the U.S. research agenda vaccines won in 2019 Samoa experienced a devastating measles epidemic resulting in nearly 2,000 hospitalizations and 83 deaths, mostly among children under age 4 during this crisis Kennedy you visited Samoa promoted anti-vaccine misinformation through your organization Children Health Defense and met with anti-vaccine activists undermining trust in public health leaders these actions contributed to declining vaccination rates and delays in life-saving vaccinations if confirmed as health secretary if a vaccine preventable outbreak happened here how would you respond? Dr. Nadine Tenn Salle pediatrician and chief medical officer of the 2019 Hawaii Medical Response Team to Samoa 2 you recently said that if vaccines are working for somebody I am not going to take them away however as health secretary you could appoint individuals who might try to change the childhood vaccine schedule or weaken recommendations from the advisory committee on immunization practices the group of experts that provides vaccine guidance to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. These recommendations shape insurance coverage and school entry requirements. Will you now commit to not using this kind of soft recall where certain vaccines remain technically available but are no longer widely recommended or reimbursed by insurance making them effectively inaccessible to much of the public? Dr. Tom Frieden former director of the CDC and current chief executive of Resolve to Save Lives 3 you have a long record of vaccine skepticism including having said repeatedly and recently that there is no vaccine that is safe and effective but you also recently said that you are all for the polio vaccine and will not take away vaccines from anyone is this true? Which vaccines do you now believe to be safe and effective and what evidence changed your mind? Kathleen Sebelius former Secretary of Health and Human Services Infectious Diseases 4 we are facing a potential pandemic of H5N1 and whatever other unknowns Mother Nature sends our way and yet you have said you will tell National Institutes of Health scientists to take a break from studying infectious diseases for about 8 years how will you help the country develop and have confidence to use effective countermeasures if they are needed to control a pandemic? Dr. Nicole Lurie former Assistant Secretary for Preparedness and Response at HHS5 in your book The Real Anthony Fauci and in a recent interview with New York Magazine you suggested that HIV is not the most likely cause of AIDS you have suggested that AIDS drugs may have caused mass murder these views are scientifically baseless and dangerous do you promise to support increased funding for and reauthorization of programs in the United States and around the world such as the Ryan White Care Act and the President Emergency Plan for AIDS Relief which have been critical in saving millions of lives and protecting millions of infants from HIV infection? Greg Gonzalez Associate Professor of Epidemiology at the Yale School of Public Health and longtime AIDS activist Global Health Security 7 the search for COVID-19 origin has revealed low visibility and minimal tracking of research that can cause pandemics the new U.S. government policy leaves the door open for experiments that can inadvertently cause a pathogen to become more transmissible or deadly how will you ensure that the United States is not continuing to fund risky research that can cause pandemics? Alina Chan molecular biologist and co-author of Viral the Search for the Origin of COVID-19 8 if diseases are global what is the United States supposed to do to protect its citizens without being a part of international organizations like the World Health Organization WHO? Dr. Helene D. Gale President Emerita of Spelman College and former President and Chief Executive of the Chicago Community Trust Healthcare Health Disparities 13 rural and urban Americans have stark differences in life expectancy health and healthcare access rural Americans live significantly shorter lives than urban Americans with higher rates of death from accidents cancer cardiovascular disease and diabetes health conditions have consistently improved over the past 15 years in urban areas. But not in rural ones, or among our tribal nations. This is often presented as a Republican versus Democratic issue, rural versus urban, but it is really not about how Americans vote, but rather where they live. What will you do to address the health disparities of rural Americans who for many diseases have survival rates as much as 15% to 30% lower than urban Americans? Dr. Deborah Birx, former White House Coronavirus Response Coordinator. 14 Interjection from the editor of RAWSEP view. The United States government should, instead of certifying wood stoves as safe when they are not safe, go forward with regulations that ban wood stove use and direct government money for use of forest refuse only for home building and furniture building, for just a few examples of use of forest products for non-burning uses. This article in a wood burning industry magazine admits that wood burning is a substantial source of PM 2.5 emissions, yet this article, since it is in a magazine that is an arm of the wood burning industry, states that this wood burning should continue, presumably because it is called renewable wood. May be renewable in the sense that a tree can be planted in the place of a cut-down burn tree, but it takes centuries or decades for the newly planted tree to attain the stature of the cut-down burn tree during those centuries or decades. Photosynthesis, which converts CO2 to oxygen and so sequesters some carbon, will not take place at the same rate as photosynthesis was performed previously, and wood burning emits both CO2 and PM 2.5, and PM 2.5 is not absorbed by trees, so PM 2.5 is not diminished by planting a tree in the place of a cut-down and burn tree. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5, particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Contrary to many beliefs, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning, and wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Replacing coal burning with wood burning creates more air pollution in the form of CO2 and PM 2.5 than coal burning. This emission data comes from testing the cleanest burning wood stove in the United Kingdom. The Eco-Design Wood Stove and International Convention does not count the emissions from wood burning. The emissions from wood burning are erased from all countries around the world when calculating if each country has met its climate goals. This non-counting or erasure of wood burning emissions data from climate goals does not mean wood burning emissions do not exist. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Would you campaign to stop the United States from employing the scientifically debunked theory of carbon neutrality of wood burning, and campaign to stop indoor residential wood burning and industrial wood burning in the United States, because all forms of wood burning are a health hazard, a threat to public health, and because wood burning hastens climate change. To be United States Centers for Disease Control CDC ordered to stop working with who immediately pending expectations of an extended withdrawal. MSN Associated Press AP excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, January 27, 2025. New York Associated Press AP. U.S. Public Health officials have been told to stop working with the World Health Organization effective immediately. A U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention official John Kingasong sent a memo to senior leaders at the agency on Sunday night, telling them that all agency staff who work with the WHO must immediately stop their collaborations and await further guidance. Experts said the sudden stoppage was a surprise and would set back work on investigating and trying to stop outbreaks of Marburg virus and pox in Africa, as well as brewing threats from around the world. It also comes as health authorities around the world are monitoring bird flu outbreaks among U.S. livestock. The Associated Press viewed a copy of the Kingasong memo, which said the stop work policy applied to all CDC staff engaging with who through technical working groups, coordinating centers, advisory boards, cooperative agreements, or other means in person or virtual. It also says CDC staff are not allowed to visit WHO offices. President Trump last week issued an executive order to begin the process of withdrawing the U.S. from WHO, but that did not take immediate effect, leaving WHO requires the approval of Congress, and that the U.S. meets its financial obligations for the current fiscal year. The U.S. also must provide a one-year notice. His administration also told federal health agencies to stop most communications with the public through at least the end of the month. Talking to WHO is a two-way street, he added, noting that WHO and U.S. health officials benefit from each other's expertise. The collaboration allows the U.S. to learn about new tests and treatments, as well as about emerging outbreaks information, which can help us protect Americans abroad and at home. To see United States, a dangerous virus bird flu enters a new phase. A pandemic is not inevitable, scientists say, but the outbreak has passed worrisome milestones in recent weeks, including cattle that may have been reinfected. The New York Times reporter covered the COVID-19 and pox outbreaks and has tracked the spread of H5N1 since 2003. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 nonprofit organization, January 27, 2025. When bird flu first struck dairy cattle a year ago, it seemed possible that it might affect a few isolated herds and disappear as quickly as it had appeared. Instead, the virus has infected more than 900 herds and dozens of people, killing one in the outbreak. Shows no signs of abating. A human pandemic is not inevitable even now, more than a dozen experts said in interviews, but a series of developments over the past few weeks indicates that the possibility is no longer remote. Toothless guidelines, inadequate testing, and long delays in releasing data echoes of the missteps during the COVID-19 pandemic have squandered opportunities for containing the outbreak, the experts said. In mid-January, the Department of Agriculture said that no new infections in Idaho herds had been identified since October, but state officials publicly discussed milder cases in November. Reinfections suggest that the virus called H5N1 could circulate on farms indefinitely, finding opportunities to evolve into a more dangerous form. A high-risk scenario: you could easily end up with endemically circulating H5 in dairy herds without symptoms obscuring rapid or easy detection. One worry is that if bird flu finds the right combination of genetic mutations, the outbreak could quickly escalate. There have been more signals over the past 4 to 6 weeks that this virus has the capacity to set off a pandemic. Federal officials too have subtly altered their tone in discussing the outbreak, now emphasizing how quickly the situation might change for the general public. H5N1 is a low risk relative to the other risks they face today, said Dr. Nirav Shah, principal deputy director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, but 100% that could change. He said this is a dangerous virus. Health experts emphasize that there are precautions Americans can take. Do not touch sick or dead birds or other animals. Get tested. If you have flu-like symptoms, do not consume raw milk or meat or feed them to your pets. If a larger outbreak were to erupt, the federal stockpile holds a few million doses of vaccine against bird bird flu, but the vaccine might need updating to match an evolved form of the virus in either case. Officials would have to scramble to produce enough for the population at large. The CDC recommends treatment with the antiviral Tamiflu, but studies have shown that the drug does very little to ease illness. Underlining concerns among many experts is that Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who would lead the Federal Health and Human Services Department if confirmed, was a vocal critic of COVID vaccines and has said the bird flu vaccines appear to be dangerous even if the second Trump administration embraces vaccine development as the first one did when COVID bore down. It is unclear how many Americans would roll up their sleeves for the shots. Influenza typically affects children and older adults, and pandemic influenza has sometimes hit young adults the hardest, but the mistrust engendered during COVID May 19th make Americans eschew precautions, at least initially. Unlike the coronavirus, which caused havoc with its sudden arrival, influenza viruses typically start off in a specific animal species or in certain geographical regions. When a different version of H5N1 emerged in East Asia nearly 3 decades ago, it mostly sickened birds. In the years that followed, it infected at least 940 people, nearly all of whom had close sustained contact with infected birds. Roughly half of those people died. But since January 2022, when the virus was detected in wild aquatic birds in the United States, it has affected more than 136 million commercial, backyard, and wild birds, helping to send egg prices soaring. It has also struck dozens of mammalian species, including cats, both wild and domesticated raccoons, bears, and sea lions for at least a year. H5N1 has been infecting dairy cattle, which were not known to be susceptible to this type of influenza. In some cows, it has had lasting effects, reducing milk production and increasing the odds of spontaneous abortions. And in 2024, the virus infected 67 Americans, compared with just 1 in the years before in 2020. The sources of these infections are not all known. One person may have transmitted the virus to someone in their household. Many of these developments are classic steps toward a pandemic, but instead of triggering actions at the federal, state, and local level, we have shrugged when each milestone has passed. Infections in dairy herds, which first emerged in Texas, appear to be declining last summer, but in late August, California announced its first case. The state figures soon rose sharply, prompting Gov. Gavin Newsom to declare a public health emergency. In December, this has not gone away, said a health official in Connecticut. In early December, scientists reported that in a lab setting, a single mutation helped the virus infect human cells more efficiently, and late last year, 2 people, a 13-year-old Canadian girl and a Louisiana resident older than 65, became seriously ill with bird flu. Previously, most people infected with H5N1 in the current outbreak had not experienced severe symptoms. The Louisiana patient, who had health conditions and cared for sick and dying birds, died in early January. The girl was placed on life support because of organ failure, but eventually recovered. Scientists still do not know how she became infected. Her only risk factor was obesity. Both patients had contracted a new version of the virus that is distinct from the one in dairy cattle and is now widespread in birds. In both individuals, the virus gained mutations during the course of infection that might allow it to better infect people. The virus seems to be in food sources like raw milk and raw pet food. Domesticated cats have died in numerous states, prompting the recall of at least one brand of pet food and new federal guidelines on pet food quality. The raw pet food thing to me is, I think, quite alarming, said Dr. Jean Morazzo, director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. Pasteurization kills live virus, as does cooking meat at high temperatures. Still, neither procedure is perfect. Dr. Morazzo noted there is no way that you can police production and sterilization in a way that is going to make sure 100% of the time that food supply is going to be safe. The Department of Agriculture was slow to begin testing H5N1 vaccines for cows, leaving interested companies in limbo. Dr. Morazzo said that the department had released genetic information from virus samples, but had not said where or when they were collected, details that would help scientists track the virus evolution. In Idaho, some herds infected in the spring seemed to recover but showed milder symptoms again in November. The USDA program to test bulk milk began in December, nearly a year after the outbreak began, and still does not include Idaho. Engaging outside companies may help the program move faster. A company that worked with federal agencies during the COVID pandemic works with a partner that assesses roughly half the nation commercial milk supply for bacteria, antibiotics, and other substances, adding H5N1 to the list would be straightforward. So why would we not just add assays into this infrastructure that we already have? In early January 2025, the Biden administration announced $306 million in new funding, about 1/3 of it for surveillance testing and outreach to farm workers. But farm workers in some places like the Texas Panhandle are still unaware of what bird flu is. Many workers still do not use protective gear, including in milk parlors where the virus is thought to spread. Human testing has been voluntary. Few farm workers have opted to be tested. If you do not look for it, you will not find it, right? Said Dr. Deborah Birx, who served as White House coronavirus response coordinator under President Trump. This is not about lockdowns or restricting activity. It is about protecting the individual American by empowering them with the information. 2D United States flu season is in full swing. When do you need Tamiflu? Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission. Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. With cases of the flu on the rise, we asked experts what you need to know about an antiviral medication that can ease symptoms. The New York Times, January 27, 2025. The flu is raging across the United States, and the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention expect cases will remain high over the next few weeks. The CDC estimates that there have been at least 12 million flu infections so far this season, leading to 160,000 hospitalizations and 6,600 deaths. Doctors frequently prescribe Tamiflu, an antiviral medication, to people who are at high risk of becoming seriously ill from the flu. The drug can ease symptoms and help people recover a bit faster, but there is a catch. The medication works best if people take it soon after they feel sick, and it can be tricky to decipher whether a pesky cough or sneeze is the flu or another virus this flu season. However, new at-home rapid tests can detect both COVID and the flu and can help you determine whether you should ask a doctor about Tamiflu. The CDC recommends Tamiflu for anyone infected with avian influenza, also known as bird flu, and for people who have been exposed to those infected with bird flu. What are the side effects? It can be hard to differentiate the side effects of Tamiflu from symptoms of the flu itself. Roughly 10 to 20% of patients who take the drug experience nausea and vomiting, said Dr. Sean O'Leary, a professor of pediatric infectious diseases at the University of Colorado School of Medicine. There have been rare reports of side effects, including hallucinations and delirium, among children in Japan who took Tamiflu, but the flu itself can also cause those issues, and doctors and health agencies have emphasized that Tamiflu is safe. Are there other drugs that treat the flu? The CDC has recommended 3 other antiviral medications for use this flu season: Relenza, an inhaled drug for people 7 and older who do not have asthma or other breathing issues; Rapivab, an intravenous intravenous drug for people 6 months and older. Xofluza, a pill for those 12 and older, and for children between the ages of 5 and 11 who do not have any chronic health conditions the CDC does not recommend. Xofluza for pregnant or breastfeeding women. Doctors prescribe these drugs less often, but they can be helpful for patients who cannot take Tamiflu or useful when Tamiflu is not available. Some doctors may use Xofluza because it is a single dose, while vaccines do not treat the flu. Doctors stress that a flu shot offers valuable protection and can reduce the risk of developing severe symptoms and dying. It is not too late to get a shot. Given the choice between Tamiflu when you get sick or a flu shot to prevent sickness in the first place, I would take the influenza vaccine 100 times out of 102. United States heat pump rebates. ACHR. United States outlook for residential heat pumps. ACHR News. Underwood, the president of Rector Seal Corp, briefed Vacker distributors on the heat pump market during the recent heating, air conditioning, and cold climate heat pumps up to the challenge. ACHR News. 8 manufacturers are putting what they learned during the residential cold climate heat pump technology challenge into new heat pumps. Canary Media. United States heat pumps keep widening their lead on gas furnaces. Canary Media 2024 heat pump sales through November show the clean heat transition is speeding up in the U.S. Clean Technica. United States heat pumps outselling gas furnaces in America. Clean Technica. The number of heat pumps sold in the U.S. is rapidly outpacing the sale of gas furnaces as more people opt for lower energy bills. United States mystery cold climate heat pump to be unveiled soon. Clean Technica. Terravis cites a rebate of up to $8,000 for heat pumps under the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Act in the U.S. HERA is part of the CNET. United States bring home the latest cold climate heat pump. CNET. The name heat pump is kind of a misnomer considering it only covers half of the device function. Heat pumps provide both heating and cooling. The cool down. United States. The government wants to give you $2,000 for an unbelievably efficient water heater. The cool down heat pump water heaters that are Energy Star certified qualify for the tax credit. Some people may be eligible for a rebate, which means they get the United States. Experts are urging homeowners to upgrade their HVAC units before massive incentives disappear. The cool down. Many U.S. homeowners can receive a $2,000 tax credit for installing an energy-efficient heat pump thanks to the Biden-era Inflation Reduction Act. United States. Hundreds of thousands of Americans could soon see nearly 20% higher energy costs. The cool down. Visit Energy Sage Heat Pump Marketplace to learn more about the tax credits and rebates available in your area. How it is working. Heat pumps save environment. America. United States. Let Americans choose clean energy. Environment. America. Heat pump. In 2022, after getting a whopping $1,320 bill for home heating oil, the Wilcox family received a rebate from the state of Maine for their MSN. United States on the fence about upgrading to a heat pump. This $8,000 tax rebate. MSN. It could cut the average home carbon impact by as much as 40%. On the fence about upgrading to a heat pump. This $8,000 tax rebate could make Realtor.com. United States. Do not use emergency heat on your heat pump unless you must. Realtor.com. Homes with heat pumps almost always have emergency heat built in as a safety net for cold snaps. If your home relies on a heat pump, you have got this. Verge. United States heat pumps and EVs are making a big difference in cold weather. Driving. The Verge. More electric vehicles today are getting winter range improving heat pumps installed, and data shows they are effective. 3A. California Los Angeles wildfires are revealing the limits of our hydrant systems. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against with smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. The New York Times. January 24, 2025. As firefighters scrambled to extinguish the wildfires consuming neighborhoods across Los Angeles County this month, they often found that the hydrants outside the burning houses were not much help. It was hardly the first time that hydrants were unable to make a serious dent in stopping an unfolding disaster in Colorado, Hawaii, and other parts of California. Hydrants have provided minimal relief as home after home has burned. A combination of extreme conditions, poor planning, and delayed evacuations contributed to the widespread devastation around Los Angeles. There were also specific limitations on the region network of fire hydrants, including a large reservoir that was offline for maintenance, but in most cases, experts say a working hydrant system would be inadequate for fighting a large-scale wildfire. While hydrants can provide a valuable first line of defense in the early stages of a wildfire, they can quickly run dry when those fires burn out of control, and especially when wind gusts carry embers across a city. But is there a way to build a bigger, better fire hydrant system that can spare neighborhoods from the sorts of wind-driven fires that have burned thousands of homes? Not likely. Experts said the laws of physics and hydraulics are what they are. We can make bigger reservoirs and bigger pipes and more fire hydrants, but I think it is going to have to be more of a social and policy decision about where and how we build in the future and what kind of other protections we make against wildfires. 3B. California San Francisco winter brings renewed health concerns for residential wood burning in Bay Area. Press releases. American Lung Association. American Lung Association. Wood burning is the greatest source of air pollution in the Bay Area during the wintertime. Wood smoke contains fine particle pollution that can cause Fort Kansas Leavenworth. The phases of wood burning impact efficiency. Idiots Corner. RAWSEP view. If you are quibbling about or spending taxpayer money researching the amount of air pollution allowed by a wood burning stove, you are ignoring the fact that wood burning for home heating is unnecessary and more expensive than clean methods of heating a home. Just do not burn wood to begin with, and educate the public about the harm to human health and the environment in burning wood. From the article headline The Leavenworth Times. Years ago, the Forest Service published research to explain the process of burning wood in a stove or furnace. The bottom line is that if 5 Massachusetts desperate renter seeks help after discovering enormous energy bill, the cool down pump detailing that the Mass Save program offers landlords rebates up to $750 for Energy Star certified heat pump water heaters. 6 New Jersey. Hewitt RAWSEP view. This Hewitt, New Jersey resident is uneducated about the air pollution caused by wood burning, or this Hewitt, New Jersey resident is uncaring. Abou, the health effects on his near neighbors of wood burning. To educate the Hewitt, New Jersey resident, wood burning emits 2.8 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel coal burning. Wood burning emits 450 times the PM 2.5 as the fossil fuel natural gas burning. Wood burning emits 90% PM 2.5 particulate matter of 2.5 micrometer size, the perfect size to infiltrate the human lungs, setting off a cascade of human health problems and early deaths. Imagine have to campfire with family and friends and knowingly cause causing them a cascade of human health problems and early deaths, when instead imagine having a gathering with family and friends in a welcoming home heated with the clean energy of a heat pump, which also doubles as an air conditioner and lowers monthly heating bills. Immediately, heat pump rebates of up to $8,000 based on a sliding income are available in several United States, which make this clean energy solution available to all income groups in those lucky states the Biden administration programs enabling and extending a smart electric grid to all rural areas powered by the truly clean energy of wind, solar, and geothermal, along with the use of heat pumps for home heating, will make United States residents able to stop threatening the health and lives of their near neighbors with any dirty home heating choices, and choosing clean home heating energy sources will also help to slow climate change, which increases the threat of United States national disasters such as wildfires and floods. The Hewitt, New Jersey resident is a follower of trends like the fad, fashion, and folly of metal fire pits with legs. If you saw all your friends jumping off a cliff with a metal fire pit with legs, would you follow like a lemming young man? Secondly, in response to the letter, there are easy and clean ways to heat a hot dog or a marshmallow, such as an electric oven. Also, babies in some unsupervised homes are often seen sucking on hot dogs. RAWSEP does not recommend this practice when rearing infants, but perhaps this is done already in this Hewitt, New Jersey resident's home, or perhaps this Hewitt, New Jersey resident was brought up with this alternative way of consuming hot dogs. Condone. This Hewitt, New Jersey resident also uses a chimney without a permit. The Hewitt, New Jersey resident seems proud of this fact that he already pollutes the air of his near neighbors without repercussions. RAWSEP views this as a challenge instead of a setback. Education is the key to stopping unnecessary and harmful to near neighbors indoor and outdoor residential wood burning. RAWSEP applauds the near neighbors that call the fire department anonymously or not about the air pollutant from wood burning and metal fire pit with legs. The person who knowingly pollutes the air of near neighbors is a nuisance at the least and a threat to the health and lives of the near neighbors at worst. Would the wood burner make the same sappy arguments to the near neighbor? If the near neighbor confronted the wood burner directly, an argument about whether wood burning is air polluting would be a waste of breath to both people who are probably having a hard time breathing at that point anyway. RAWSEP has explained why wood burning is air polluting in the paragraph above for you. The argument that this must be clarified further is a method of delay leading to denial of justice, a concept we are all familiar with. In 2024, changing the subject to wanting the police to chase murderers, rapists, and spouse beaters would get the attention of the editor of RAWSEP, except that the police can chase and stop several injustices simultaneously, and police should both stop unnecessary air pollution and chase murderers, rapists, and spouse beaters, since all those police chases would reduce harms to public health from unnecessary residential wood burning and reduce the numbers of murders, rapes, and spouse beatings in Hewitt, New Jersey. The letter writer also speaks up for the residents of fire pit polluting Ringwood, New Jersey. As an example, for the residents of fire pit disabled Hewitt, New Jersey, who long to breathe polluted air freely, Ringwood has a ring to it, but the actual practice of polluting the air of your near neighbors takes away the near neighbor's right to breath clean air. Your right to swing your fist should end before it hits my nose is another RAWSEP aphorism which RAWSEP lives by, which RAWSEP urges you to think about. From the letter, New Jersey confusion over fire pit rules, the West Milford Messenger excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission. Particulates, a 501c3 nonprofit organization. This letter is about whether a citizen of West Milford can burn wood with a metal fire pit with legs without a fire permit. I see metal fire pits all over the 80 square miles of West Milford. If you have a campfire legally or illegally, you could get a visit from the West Milford Police, the West Milford Fire Bureau, or the New Jersey Forest Fire Service in the near future. Imagine your neighbor who cannot stay in their business or just does not like you as a neighbor calling the police or fire bureau or the Forest Fire Service on you anonymously to get you in trouble. Of course, most neighbors will be calling out of concern for a possible forest fire. A resident of Hewitt near West Milford, New Jersey 7, Ohio. This again. Home efficiency pros are wary as Ohio gets federal energy rebates. RAWSEP view Idiot's Corner in Ohio as the headline asks the recipient of federal energy rebates to be skeptical of an opportunity to take a personal stand in stopping air pollution. The State House News Bureau, the Home Electrification and Appliance Rebates Program has money to cover part of the cost of a heat pump and highly efficient appliances. 8A. Oregon Eugene Idiot's Corner. Wood heating season is here. What do you need to know? RAWSEP view winter is not wood heating season. Winter is when a home may need to be heated even with global warming. What the headline should read is heat pump heating season is here. What do you need to know? From the article headline, CAMTR red means no airflow essential burning, only do not burn wood unless it is your only heat source. If burning, you must have zero visible smoke. From 8B. Oregon Lane County Idiot's Corner air quality officials offer tips for cleaner wood stove burning during stagnant air periods. RAWSEP view winter is not wood heating season. Winter is when a home may need to be heated even with global warming. What the headline should read is heat pump heating season is here. What do you need to know? From the article headline, Kesey Lane County, Oregon, as lingering cold weather conditions lead many residents to utilize wood burning heat sources in their homes. Local Air 9A Pennsylvania Penn Environment testimony to the PADEP on PM 2.5 National Ambient Air Quality Standard. Environment America. Additional environmental impacts from fine particulate matter include haze visibility, impairment, acid rain formation, fish kills / algae blooms. And 9. The Pennsylvania Biden administration awarded home energy rebate money to PA Del J in final days. WHYY. The rebates will reduce the cost of electric heat pumps, electric stoves, wiring, and insulation. They are expected to roll out this year. 10. Washington Wenatchee Idiot's Corner. Wood burning stoves ought be protected, says state sound short. KPQ. RAWSEP view human health ought to be protected over whatever reason the state senator gives for protecting wood burning. From the article headline, State San Shelley Short is doubling down on her opposition to SB 5174, a bill that takes a hard line on wood and pellet stoves. 11. Canada Q&A heat pumps and how they work explained by a sustainability expert. Yahoo News. Canada rebate programs to help homeowners afford upgrades that make their homes more eco-friendly and less costly to heat. About 50% of homes, and if you can imagine, a heat pump is basically a device that extracts heat from outside and brings it inside. And maybe a good analogy would be 12A. United Kingdom Drax Burning wood for power not necessary for UK energy goals. Analysis finds The Guardian the UK should stop burning wood to generate power because it is not needed to meet the government target of decarbonizing the electricity sector. By Drax has contracts to receive subsidies for burning wood until 2027 and is hoping for a renewal. Burning wood for power not necessary for UK energy goals. Analysis finds experts say UK should stop biomass biomass burning, as electricity sector decarbonization by 2030 can be achieved without it. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization The Guardian. The UK should stop burning wood to generate power because it is not needed to meet the government target of decarbonizing the electricity sector by 2030. According to analysis, Ed Miliband, the Energy Security and Net Zero Secretary, is expected to make a decision soon on whether to allow billions of pounds in new public subsidies for biomass burning. Despite fierce opposition from green groups, campaigners argue that wood burning is not carbon neutral because regrowing trees takes decades to make up for the carbon emitted when they are burned. RAWSEP interjects here that living trees do not sequester PM 2.5 from wood burning, but like humans, living trees hold their breath in the presence of wood burning emissions of PM 2.5 and therefore do not absorb PM 2.5, and crucially, in refutation of the scientifically debunked theory of carbon neutrality, living trees slow their photosynthesis activities in the presence of PM 2.5, thereby absorbing less wood burning emissions of CO2 during photosynthesis. Wood burning emissions are 90% PM 2.5, but ministers were thought to be reluctant to let go of the capacity for baseload power generation that biomass represents. Biomass makes up roughly 4% of the UK total electricity generation and about 8% of green power generation, most of it coming from the Drax power station losing. That would leave a big gap. UK government plans to decarbonize the power sector on paper by 2030. However, research seen by The Guardian shows that the shortfall can be made up and that bill payers would benefit. The think tank E3G and the analyst company Varina Partners found that expanding offshore wind, encouraging consumers to use electricity at quiet times through smart metering and regulating gas-fired power plants to stop them profiteering would produce savings to consumers and enable the target to be met. Offshore wind turbines. Research has found expanding offshore wind could be used to ensure the target of decarbonizing the electricity sector by 2030 is met without the use of biomass burning. The UK program director at E3G said the government can reach its 2030 clean power mission without Drax. Biomass power creates a high level of global heating emissions and is not clean. The best backup power for the long term will be green hydrogen, and action is needed now to commercialize this technology as fast as possible. The report found that with changes to the UK renewable energy regime and policies, including shifting green levies on bills into general taxation, households could save £200 a year on their electricity bills. Drax, formerly the UK biggest coal-fired power station which was converted to burn wood, is the main source of the UK biomass electricity generation. The company has contracts to receive subsidies for burning wood until 2027 and is hoping for a renewal by then. Drax will have received £11 billion in public subsidies, according to Greenpeace, roughly £2 million a day. The decision on whether to continue the subsidies lies with Miliband. Many Labour MPs are privately unhappy about the prospect of diverting more payments to such a controversial source of power. Paul McNamee, the director of the Labour Climate and Environment Forum, said highlighting green hydrogen as the most cost-effective option for backup power proves Labour recent investment announcements are exactly what our energy market needs. It should also provide pause for thought on any upcoming decision for subsidizing Drax, the biggest single emitter of carbon dioxide in the UK. E3G also found that some existing gas-fired power stations would still be needed in 2030, but that these could be coupled with a relatively small amount of carbon capture and storage technology. Excess renewable energy generated at times of high wind and solar output could be used to generate hydrogen, which could be stored in salt caverns. This would greatly reduce the need for backup generation. Zonal pricing for electricity, which could be used to give local communities cheaper power if they host infrastructure such as wind farms or pylons, and more public investment in green energy would also be needed. A spokesperson for the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero said subsidies for biomass generators will end in 2027, and we are reviewing evidence on the case for potential support beyond this. We expect full compliance with all regulatory obligations on biomass. Consumers rightly expect the highest standard of accountability from generators. 12. The United Kingdom Idiot's Corner. There should not be conflicting messages and statistics around wood burning at home. RAWSEP view. The simple message is that all wood burning pollutes the air, and wood burning is unnecessary in the United Kingdom, and wood burning is more expensive than the increasingly cheaper, cleaner means of heating homes. From the article headline Installer Online, for example, the incorrect assumption that DEFRA 2022 figure of 29% PM 2.5 emissions from domestic combustion applies to all wood burning stove users. United Kingdom Idiot's Corner. Benefits of wood burning stoves are being overlooked. Report says RAWSEP view. Winter is not what heating season. Winter is when a home may need to be heated even with global warming. What the headline should read is heat pump heating season is here. What do you need to know? From the article headline Daily Mail. The war over wood burning stoves. Experts claim the benefits of Trini burners are being overlooked and say open fires are good for mental health. 12C. United Kingdom Leicester professor says stop using wood burning stoves amid 61,000 deaths a year. Leicestershire Live. Leicester Mercury. A professor of environmental chemistry says some people with wood burning stoves should consider stopping using them as they are linked to 61,000. 12D. United Kingdom London. What are people really saying about heat pumps? Nesta Analyses Online Conversations. Elemental London. To learn more about challenges and questions around home heating and heat pumps, Nesta analyzed online forum conversations posted by homeowners. 12. United Kingdom Sheffield. Toxic wood burning remains unenforced in Sheffield despite hundreds of complaints, and a Now Then magazine. Home wood burning has overtaken traffic fumes as the primary source of air pollution in UK cities. 12F. United Kingdom West Midlands Fire Service warns of the dangers of burning wood coals indoors, which can cause deadly carbon monoxide poisoning. Wood burning stoves serious problem for your health. Environment. Dangers of burning wood coals indoors, a carbon monoxide warning from WMFS. 12G. United Kingdom wood burning fireplace believed to be cause of early morning fire in Bath Township. News. Hometown stations. A wood burning fireplace appears to be the origin of a house fire this morning in Bath Township. The Bath Township Fire Department was called out. 13. Sweden suspects gross sabotage after damage to cable under Baltic Sea. The Nordic country has opened an investigation into the damage just weeks after NATO stepped up its military presence in the area following a series of similar incidents. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates, a 501c3 non-profit organization. The New York Times, January 27, 2025. The Swedish authorities on Monday boarded a ship in connection with what they described as gross sabotage after an undersea communications cable in the Baltic Sea was damaged a day earlier. The ship was escorted to the coast of Sweden for an investigation. The authorities said the authorities have not yet made public the nature or the extent of the damage to the communications cable which runs between Sweden and Latvia. The incident follows other suspected sabotage attempts on cables under the Baltic Sea, which has recently become a theater of potential hybrid warfare between NATO and Russia. 2 weeks ago, the Atlantic Alliance started a new patrol and surveillance operation to protect critical infrastructure in the sea on which Russia has coastline after a number of cables were severed. The NATO mission, called Baltic Sentry, is intended to help protect underwater cables and pipelines by enhancing the alliance presence in the region, said Mark Rutte, the organization's Secretary General. The operation involves frigates, maritime patrol aircraft, submarine satellites, remotely operated vehicles, and drones. NATO, of which Sweden is the newest member, said the mission was an effort to improve the ability to protect critical undersea infrastructure and respond if required. Alliance officials have regularly said that while they suspect Russia of being behind the sabotage of cables and pipelines, actual responsibility is extremely difficult to prove. The cable that was damaged on Sunday belonged to Latvia's state-run radio and television center. According to a statement from the center on Sunday night, the statement noted that since the cable lies at a depth of more than 160 feet, the center would be able to determine the exact nature of the damage only once the repair work began. 14A Germany heat pump sales halved in Germany in 2024, but industry confident of better times ahead. Clean energy wire. Clean energy wire sales of heat pumps in Germany dropped by almost half, 46% in 2024, but the industry is confident. 14B Germany Firewall. Around the far-right Wobbles in Germany, responding to the killing of a child. The poll-leading Christian Democrats are pushing to overhaul migration laws, possibly with votes from the Alternative for Germany, the neo-Nazi party. Thousands of people gathered with candles for a silent vigil following Wednesday stabbing that left 2 dead, including a toddler, in Aschaffenburg, Germany last week. RAWSEP top excerpt from article below. Until last week, German mainstream parties had campaigned more heavily on promised fixes to Germany's stagnating economy than on migration policy. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. 501c3 non-profit organization. The New York Times reporting from Berlin, January 27, 2025. The man who is favored to be Germany's next Chancellor, Friedrich Merz of the CDU, has opened the door to working with the Alternative for Germany to pass tough new immigration restrictions, potentially breaking a long-standing effort to shun a party whose flirtation with Nazi language has made it anathema to the political mainstream. The opening by Friedrich Merz, the leader of the center-right Christian Democrats, who leads in the polls for the Chancellor election next month, came after a knife attack last weekend in Bavaria by a mentally ill Afghan immigrant that killed 2 people, including a toddler. The attack, the latest in a string of high-profile killings carried out by immigrants, has since upended Germany parliamentary election set for February 23rd, refocusing what had been an economy-themed campaign toward the contentious issue of migration. Merz is trying to show voters that he and his party are serious about tightening Germany borders and following through on deportations of migrants whom authorities have determined should leave the country, but until now all parties at the national level had built what is colloquially known as a firewall around the AFD, hoping to blunt the party move into the mainstream. The AFD is currently running second in polls before the election, sitting comfortably ahead of Chancellor Olaf Scholz. Social Democrats, though well behind Merz. Christian Democrats. The Bavarian attacks change that script. Merz has pushed in recent days to force a vote in parliament over migration legislation. The plan would bring permanent border patrols, would stop anyone from entering the country without legal papers, and place in custody all migrants who have been ordered to leave the country. The legislation could pass on the strength of votes from the AFD, forming a partnership that mainstream German political parties have long treated as taboo and drawing fierce criticism from other mainstream political leaders. Friedrich Merz is willing to make common cause with the AFD. Lars Klingbeil, the co-leader of Scholz's Social Democratic Party, told the Rhenish Post, a regional daily newspaper. In doing so, he is abandoning the CDU previous principles in its dealings with the AFD, splitting the democratic center of our country and alienating our European partners. He added Merz defended his plan to support the restrictions. What is right in principle is not made wrong by the fact that the wrong people vote for it, he said Monday. Some officials urged caution. In response, Jürgen Herzing, the mayor of Aschaffenburg, a town of nearly 80,000 inhabitants, warned that despite parallels with other recent attacks, people should refrain from acts of revenge. We cannot and must not blame an entire population group for the actions of an individual, but political leaders were swift to call for action, most notably those with the AFD. Scholz issued a statement calling the killing an unfathomable act of terror. A version of the bill that Merz is expected to bring to Parliament contains a paragraph criticizing the AFD for seizing on problems associated with massive illegal migration to promote xenophobia, but despite earlier assurances that under his watch his Christian Democratic Party would never rely on the AFD for votes, Merz did not rule out doing so in this case. I do not look to the right or the left, I just look straight ahead on these issues, he said last week. The AFD celebrated Merz's announcement, implying that the legislation is little more than a copy of what the AFD has demanded. The firewall has fallen. The CDU and CSU have accepted my offer to vote together with the AFD in the Bundestag on the crucial issue of migration, the AFD Chancellor candidate Alice Weidel wrote in a post on X. This is good news for our country. She added 15A Africa Tanzania Matipwiki example inside a new plan to bring electricity to 300 million in Africa. Some $35 billion is aimed at building small solar sites in rural areas and other improvements. The World Bank chief called the project foundational to everything. A hair salon in Matipwiki, Tanzania, a village that briefly had solar power from a microgrid. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against wood smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization. The New York Times reported from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, in the village of Matipwiki, where electricity arrived then largely went away. January 27, 2025. The leaders of more than half of African nations gathered this week in Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, sprawling seaside metropolis, to commit to the biggest burst of spending on electric power generation in Africa history. The World Bank, African Development Bank, and others are pledging at least $35 billion to expand electricity across a continent where more than 500 million people still do not have it. About half of the money will go towards solar mini-grids that serve individual communities. The loans will come at below market interest rates, a crucial stipulation as global lenders usually charge much higher rates in Africa, citing higher risks. In an interview, Ajay Bunga, the president of the World Bank, cast the initiative in sweeping terms where economic development met societal stability and basic human rights without Electricity, we cannot get jobs, healthcare skills. He said the success of electrification, he said, is foundational to everything. The summit promise is to get half of Africa's 600 million unelectrified people powered up in just 6 years. That averages out to 5 million people a month. Bunga said the World Bank on its own had not yet even passed the 1 million a month mark. More people without power in sub-Saharan Africa. 15b Africa Tanzania electrification by Colorado-based Husk Power System, 2015. To present example, the number of people without access to electricity grew by 100 million from 2000 to 2022 as population growth outpaced electrification. Source: World Bank. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against with smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization. Despite the unusually strong statements of political will, many people, particularly in Africa, beleaguered power sector, expressed deep skepticism. In fact, some noted that one need not look farther than the host country Tanzania to find a cautionary tale. Recently, the world's biggest developer of solar mini-grids, Colorado-based Husk Power Systems, closed up shop in Tanzania because the government insisted that it sell its electricity at the same price as the heavily subsidized government-run electric utility. Unable to make money at that price, Husk said the company sold its assets, which it had spent millions of dollars on, at a steep loss. Some remain intact but are defunct. Others have been dismantled and are being sold for spare parts. This despite the fact that Tanzania had seemed like an ideal market to Husk. When it arrived there in 2015, the country's new president, at the time John Magufuli, had earned the nickname the bulldozer, both for building roads and for reining in corruption. Only a third of Tanzanians were connected to the grid. Billboard reading in part: Africa Energy Summit stands next to 2 spindly palm trees alongside a body of water with cargo ships and cranes on a far shore. Leaders from across Africa have gathered in Dar es Salaam this week to try to solve the continent energy problems inside a home in Matipwiki that rents a rooftop solar panel. Rows of solar panels stand next to a small white building behind chain link fence and barbed wire. A Husk facility that once supplied energy to Matipwiki is now closed, and an operative Husk departure left thousands of people powerless and frustrated, as they had been willing to pay Husk higher prices. Among them is Mwajuma Mohammed and her family in Matipwiki, a community where around 200 houses and businesses briefly got power from a Husk solar mini-grid that now caked in dust. When we got electricity, it was like we were normal people suddenly, she said, showing a visitor around her darkened house. The first thing she bought, she said, was a TV, which is now back in the box it came in. It feels unfair. It feels like we wasted money. Without naming Husk, Tanzania Energy Minister Dodo Biteko said in an interview that some mini-grid operators charged artificially high prices, which resulted in inflation, but it is the government role to decide what is reasonable. Lenders are trying to address this issue head-on. Tanzania is one of 12 countries signing such compacts at the summit meeting. 18 more are expected. In addition to solar mini-grids, a roughly equal amount of money will go toward extending traditional existing power grids, mostly supplied by hydropower and fossil fuels. Electricity is supplied sporadically by the government provider. When Husk closed, the family lost electricity access. The plummeting cost of building solar power is driven by China inexpensive, high-quality solar panels. Solar power become more affordable. Solar takes far less time to deploy than building a dam or power plant and does not emit greenhouse gases. The Rockefeller Foundation is investing tens of millions of dollars. Almost 30 heads of state now see this is the quickest, least cost way to create jobs and prevent instability they see growing in their countries. Since Husk shut down the mini-grid in Matipwiki, poles carrying power from TANESCO, the state-run utility, arrived in the village, but they serve only a quarter as many people, and the service is inferior. Customers say like all but 4 of dozens of electric utility companies in Africa. Tanzania runs at a steep loss, and lack of maintenance leads to frequent and lengthy power cuts. 15c Africa Tanzania Matipwiki, a $35 billion loan project led by World Bank, aims to expand electricity in Africa. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against with smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization. The New York Times: with Husk, we could buy a package at a set price and use however much electricity we wanted, so people like me started businesses, said the village chairman, who uses a TANESCO connection to refrigerate drinks that he sells with TANESCO. It actually costs me 3 times as much for the same amount of power. Either it is my meter going up or the power cuts for hours, even days. The experience in Matipwiki explains why lenders are favoring decentralized electrification in many places where a grid does not currently exist. Extending it there is not cost-effective nor beneficial to end users, at least compared to a solar mini-grid, said a man who leads the Rockefeller Foundation Power and Climate Program. The Mission funders say they have been clear with governments that money alone cannot solve the problem. Regulatory change might attract investment beyond the $35 billion this week. Multilateral funding is never 100% assured. A new administration in Washington that is openly hostile to both renewable energy and foreign aid has caused uncertainty over the World Bank core funding, if only because the United States is the World Bank biggest contributor. For now, the bank has enough money to fund its electrification mission because of last-minute decisions made by the outgoing Biden administration. Bunga said he hoped the investments rolled out in Dar es Salaam would spur private equity, sovereign wealth funds, and local banks to follow them. Husk is building 1 mini-grid a day, and that is the fastest in the industry. Even if you added 10 more Husks, you would still only get a fraction of the way. Husk has built 70 mini-grids in Nigeria, where it has found a receptive regulatory environment, and Husk said on Monday that it would enter the Democratic Republic of Congo this year. 15d World Bank 2022 electricity access estimates. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity in relationship to residents against with smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization. Population without electricity: Algeria 0%, Egypt 0%, Mauritania 51%, Chad 88%, Nigeria 45%. Ethiopia 45%, Dem Rep Congo 79%, Angola 52%, Madagascar 64%, South Africa 14%. 15e Africa Congo and Rwanda. Aggression. Rwandan-backed rebels took the Congolese city of Goma on Monday, where some of the same funders supporting the new initiative had backed a mini-grid project. Excerpts edited by RAWSEP for brevity and clarity and relationship to residents against with smoke emission particulates. A 501c3 non-profit organization, while lenders and presidents rub shoulders in Dar es Salaam. However, Congo also offered a reminder of the volatility that threatens progress. Cities fall, governments renege on commitments, and debts pile up. Lenders know they are still up against the same underlying issues that have so limited investment in African infrastructure and left many countries countries economically hobbled, but lack of electricity is more than just a drag on economies at a drag period to not have electricity in a world where more than 90% of people do. It means no internet, no speakers to play music, no cold beer from the fridge, no light for kids to do homework. When Husk came to Matipwiki Mashavu, Ali 45, a mother of 8, was above all excited for one of her daughters who had the best grades in the village secondary school. She imagined her studying late into the night. Since they lost electricity access, her daughter has dropped some studying. Ms. Ali now rents a small rooftop solar panel for roughly 20 cents a day, but the light it provides is dim, and without a battery to store power, it does not work on cloudy days. Her children go to bed soon after the sun sets. The woman has set aside her own dreams of how she could support them with just a little bit of power. My plan had been to open an ice cream business, Ms. Ali said, sitting outside her house surrounded by family. It was already dark out, and the one outdoor bulb powered by the rented panel began to flicker. What to say? It remains an idea. 16A India improved daily PM 2.5 estimates in India reveal inequalities in recent enhancement of air quality. Science exposure to ambient fine particulate matter PM 2.5 is a recognized global health concern. India, with its large population and high average pollution, here we develop open source daily fine particulate matter PM 2.5 datasets at a 10-kilometer resolution for India from 2005 to 2023 using a 216B. India, wood burning stoves serious problem for your health environment. Deccan Herald burning wood or coal to heat their homes. Wood burning stoves are often considered safer, cleaner, and more attractive than open fires. This May 17th, Laos air quality in Laos reaches unhealthy levels. Xinhua PM 2.5. The fine particulate matter that causes smog is an air pollutant containing tiny particles with a diameter of less than 2.5 micrometers. PM 18. Thailand PM 2.5. Dust may return after January 29th due to low ventilation rates. Nation Thailand air quality trends. Bangkok and its vicinity. The situation has improved with lower hourly PM 2.5 levels. However, overall levels still exceed K research tallies. Cost of PM 2.5 dust pollution in Bangkok. Nation Thailand PM 2.5 dust is particulate matter that is 2.5 microns or less in diameter. Persistent dust pollution that exceeds standard levels has been paid. Tarn unveils 6 urgent measures to tackle PM 2.5 pollution. Nation Thailand PM 2.5 refers to fine dust particles that are 2.5 micrometers or less in diameter and can be breathed in easily. The PM 2.5 situation is still most of Thailand still faces red levels of smog. Bangkok hosts the Geoinformatics and Space Technology Development Agency. GISTA reported at 8 a.m. that particulate matter 2.5 micrometers and less in diameter. 19 APM 2.5, and the brain scientists reveal the disturbing impact of wildfire smoke on key brain cell cypos. Smoldering eucalyptus wood smoke extract increases inflammation and disrupts the blood-brain barrier by reducing tight junction proteins. 19 BPM 2.5 and heart rate variability. Association between exposure to particulate matter and heart rate variability in vulnerable nature. This study examines PM 2.5 less than 2.5 micrometer effects on HRV in patients with 19 CPM 2.5 and long-term health effects, protecting your health from the risks of wildfire smoke. Forbes. While the initial focus was on the acute health effects of the wood smoke and PM 2.5 particulate matter, concerns are growing about the long-term